Hi, it's Stephanie Miller, and I want to invite you to create here. So, I'm an artist. I do oil painting, collage, watercolors, pen and ink illustration, and sculpture. I've been an artist most of my life, and I'm doing this video because I did this recently for a friend. I did a little instruction for her on color schemes and on the color wheel. And I thought it would be really helpful just to do an instructional video for you. So I've already done the setup, and you might have seen there's two previous videos. One shows how I transferred the artwork onto this piece of watercolor paper, which is kind of heavy stock. And then the other one, I just showed you the tools that I'm using for watercolor. So I'm going to just tip this so you'll be able to watch what I'm doing. And I just want to show you, I have these really just wonderful Dr. P.H. Martin's watercolors. They're super intense, beautiful color, and they go down really easy. And you can see they have just these little droppers, so you just drop a few drops. There's also a lot of people use the solid watercolors, and those are fine. And I'm just going to start. I have two brushes here. One is going to be wet. This one I'm going to use wet, and this one's going to be dry, just if I need to take up a little paint with the dry brush. So I'm just going to start. I have a little palette here, and I'm going to drop a few drops of the crimson. This is 18B crimson, to start with the red. And I think what I'll do is I think I'm going to start with primary colors and then work my way into the secondary and tertiary colors. So I have a clean water jar here, and I'm just going to put down a nice coat of water on the petal that I'm going to paint, which will help the petal that I'm painting to absorb the paint a little bit. And when the paint goes into the paper, you're just going to see that nice, really vibrant color, and especially these Dr. P.H. Martin paints really give you that. So now you can see how the paint is following the water. And I think what I wish I would have done was just waited another minute for the paper to absorb the water just a little more. I was rushing along because I'm doing a video. So I'm putting a coat of the red down, and I'm going to go back when this dries up a little bit and put another coat just to get nice dense color. So as you probably know, red is one of the primary colors. So there are three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. I think most people know that, but just in case you don't. And also, I just wanted to let you know that I am going to explain color schemes as well. And there's a relationship, and that relationship is what I would describe as a triad relationship between the between each of the colors. So now I'm going to go ahead and put water for the blue petal, and I have a little reference chart that I'm using here just so I can keep track of where I am when I'm skipping around. So there are 1, 2, 3 petals, and then I'm going here to put the blue, so I'm putting clean water down on the blue petal. And then I'll go ahead and put the water for the yellow because I'm going to get to that really soon. So that'll be from the blue petal. 1, 2, 3. There's blue. 1, 2, 3. Yellow. So I'm putting the water down on the yellow petal as well while I let that blue just dry up a little bit. I didn't like how wet the red petal was. So Here's the blue. This is Prussian Blue. I happen to really like Prussian Blue, which is one of the reasons I bought it, but it is also very close to true blue. And if you venture into the world of painting, blues can be quite overwhelming. And just a little history on paint. A lot of the paint colors that we have today are based on the materials they were made out of historically. And some of them we still use those same materials, like clay and bug carapaces and stuff like that. But some of them, the colors, the pigment comes from chemical processes. Um, and in the realm of blue, there were many, many, many things that made blue. And so when you start painting, you'll notice that there are just so many different kinds of blue. And what I suggest, and I will show you, actually I'm going to lift that up so you can see. No, I'm not going to do that. At the end, I'll try to remember to show you. I have a color chart that shows me, I use it for oil painting, that shows all the different ways that colors blend. Because some things that are blue in this world aren't actually blue. They're more of a green color. Like phthalo blue is actually kind of a green color. And to help you with that, when you go to art supply stores, I'm also going to put a second coat of this yellow just so the yellow has a really nice coverage. If you go to art supply stores, often, particularly if this may not be true at a craft store particularly, but stores that have art supplies, if you ask them, they often will have color charts. And you can see, instead of trying to judge, because if you look at this Prussian blue in the bottle, you can see it almost looks like it's black. So I asked to see the color chart before I picked the Prussian blue originally, because I did want the classic kind of blue. And the yellow I'm using is lemon yellow. There's this watercolor has a really beautiful yellow that I love and I use a lot called chrome yellow. Okay, which of course I haven't pulled out yet. Yeah, chrome yellow, number 3, which I really love that one too. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, I'm going to go back to the red and give the red another coat, because I want it to be really intense. So what I've done here actually is paint what is known as the primary triad. And I mean, no surprise if you've ever been, say, in a nursery school, you probably realize that the primary colors are a common color scheme, and in our culture particularly, we tend to use primary colors for children. So we put primary colors in classrooms and on kids' books and like that. You saw I just put a red dot there, and that's because I'm going to identify the primary and secondary triads down below on this color chart. And what I'm also going to do is make a separate sheet that has all color schemes, and I'm not going to do that today because I don't have the sheet of paper ready. So I'm going to go ahead and put another drop of red here, and I have the blue over here. So I am going to attempt, God willing, I'm going to make violet. And so violet is a color that is halfway between red and blue. So I'm putting a little red over here next to the blue. And with most colors, what you'd like them to be is half and half. So if it's 2 drops of red, it's also 2 drops of blue. So I feel like that is a little redder than I think I want it to be. I'm going to clean out my brush and get just one more little drop of blue. Okay. And now So as you might guess, that violet petal is going to be halfway between, oops, did I? The violet petal is going to be here halfway in between the red and the blue. And I'm just putting a coat of water down again so that it'll absorb. And you can see my brush was a little dirty because I mixed the color before I put the violet down, and that's totally fine. It's just not a problem at all. First, so I don't forget later, I'm going to go over here and put a little violet dot for later when I do the triad. And I can see this is very, very dark, so I just added a drop of water to get it to lighten up just a little bit. And you might have noticed that when I mixed it, I left myself a space in between the red and the blue. And that's because I'm going to use that to make these what are known as tertiary colors. So now I'm painting in the violet, which is a secondary color. So the red, blue, and yellow were the primary colors, and now I'm doing the secondary colors. And I'm just going in and putting a little more. The other thing I didn't mention, so I'm using watercolor paper, and you have a couple of choices. In this case, I used a Sharpie, partly because it's what I had on hand, but it's fine. Sharpies will not bleed, and actually watercolor paper will take the Sharpie ink just fine. So that worked really well, but also I didn't mention about putting the water down. You'll notice I keep picking up my little, I have these little pre-cut squares of paper towel, and I pick them up and clean my brush out, and then put it into the clean water. So I start with a clean brush because next I'm going to do green, which means picking up yellow in my brush, and I want to be really sure that I don't have any violet left in my brush when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple drops of red. And I don't think I'm going to need the yellow. I'm sorry, a couple drops of yellow is what I meant to say. I don't think I'm going to need any more yellow, so, oh, wait a minute. See that? So I need to add my yellow dot down below for my primary color scheme reference. And now I'm going to put a drop of blue. Sometimes with watercolor, the blue will really overwhelm the yellow. So, and see that did. So see how I have this blue-green color? I'm going to add more yellow so that I get a more of a true green color, because I want the secondary colors, as much as possible, you really want them to look like they're halfway in between the other two colors. That's still a little blue, and that's because Prussian blue is kind of a dark blue. So the thing that's a little bit of a bummer about this is using up a lot of paint in order to get this to be the color that I want. But we're doing it. So I'm going to add my green down below for the secondary color scheme. And then once again, I mix the color without first wetting down the petal. So I had to clean my brush out again. That's one of the things about watercolors. There's a lot of brush cleaning going on a lot of the time, but that's okay. And you can see, again, my brush has a little green in it. It's not a problem. One of the things about watercolors, they're nice, pure, clear colors. So you don't like, I mean, generally you try to avoid having anything be muddy. And as long as I'm at it, and I have a relatively clean brush, I am going to go ahead and wet the orange petal, which you'll see is halfway between red and yellow. So I am just about to complete painting the petals for what would be the secondary color scheme. So a secondary color scheme is a color scheme that is using these secondary colors, which are halfway between the primary colors. So the violet was halfway between red and blue, and now the green is halfway between yellow and blue. And you can see I'm just kind of methodically working my way around the color wheel. Just like I did with the red, I'm going to let this green dry a little bit. It'll become a little more intense as it dries, but I'm still probably going to add a second coat, and that's fine because I have plenty of green paint here. So that's good. And now I'm going to go ahead and mix the orange. And again, I want to make sure that my brush is nice and clean. And I'm going to use this red that I have in my palette already right here. I'm going to add 2 drops of yellow. Yellow's not as strong as the other colors, so sometimes you have to add extra. And surprise, surprise. No, I think that's a pretty good one. So you remember that just a minute ago I got that petal wet so that it would absorb the paint. I also have a very nice orange that I use a lot for my when I'm painting flowers, but for the purpose of a color wheel, this is a really great learning exercise, and if you wanted to, you could even follow along with this video. You could just get those 3 paints, the Prussian Blue, the Crimson, and the Lemon Yellow, and make your own color wheel. And you don't have to use, I drew this flower because I thought it was fun, but you can, just draw yourself 12 circles in a circle. The one thing, if you're going to do that, that's important is that there is a relationship between these petals, and so you want them to be equidistant apart or equal sized, because that's how you see. So you can see this equilateral triangle that makes the primary color scheme, and now another equilateral triangle that makes the secondary color scheme. And so I'm putting another dot down here for the secondary color scheme. And when this is all done, by the way, I am going to offer this chart online. And I'm going to put it on my website, which is stephaniemillerartist.com. And you can pick up a color chart so you have it for reference. So I hope that that will be helpful to you. I have always had color charts in my studio. I think they're an important tool for artists. So now I'm wetting the petals in the orange family because I was using orange, and so if there was any paint left in my brush, it wouldn't contaminate. I especially, so I want to talk about complementary colors. So I described those triangles. So the other relationship is the complementary colors. So the things that are directly across from one another are complementary. So you can see here orange and blue are straight across. And in this chart I've actually created a little line so that you can follow straight across to the blue. I really love complementary colors. There's a couple of things about complementary colors that are important to know, and I'm filling in the yellow-orange now. So I took that orange that I was working with and I added just a little bit of yellow to it to get it to be, except for I put it in the wrong place, which is okay, we can recover. It's great doing these videos. Okay, this is where the yellow-orange goes. between yellow and orange. The petal above won't be that big a problem because it's going to be red-orange, so it'll just get another coat with more red in it. So now this is the first petal that I'm putting in that is